In December, my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic pancreatic cancer. In this time, he has dropped significant weight and is undergoing chemo. My fiance, 27 male, and I have been engaged since July, together 11 years total. We had tossed around the idea of getting married sooner rather than later, because I want my dad at my wedding. This past week, we decided that since it is our 11-year anniversary and my dad's sister is in town, one of his only remaining living family members that he's close with, we would get married this upcoming Saturday. It's actually perfect because my fiance's mom is a marriage commissioner and had agreed to do it at her house. Also, we have a makeup artist and 2 event planners in the family, both that we're very close with, who are more than pumped about this. The wedding would be small, about 20 people, and barely any costs. No venue to pay for and book, hardly any food costs, homemade beef on a bun and veggie trays, etc. I haven't asked my mom for a dime, but she's refusing to come. She said that not getting married in a church is a mockery to actual weddings. She said it's immature and any other insult she could think of. When I asked my grandma if they would come, my grandma cried and said that she's worried about my soul because I won't make it to heaven, but that she would think about coming. So that's where my mom got it from. On one hand, I'm worried that my mom won't allow my dad to come. He just finished his first cycle of chemo, so he would need a ride. He also said that while he doesn't agree with our decision, he will definitely walk me down the aisle. My question: how do I navigate this? Am I being an a-hole for rushing this out of fear of my dad dying? He's starting to turn yellow, meaning that his cancer is spreading to his liver. Any help would be appreciated. Your dad will not be at your wedding if you wait. Pancreatic cancer is not a recoverable condition. Try to explain this to your mother in a heartfelt way. Tell her she can invite her preacher. See if he will officiate if that's an option. You can try to compromise some to accommodate her, but in the end, roll up and get your dad and do the damn thing. Good luck. You won't regret making this type of a decision on your own terms. Update: I went and spoke to my dad about the wedding last Wednesday. He wasn't pumped about the idea, but said that he will walk me down the aisle. He said that this is happening too fast, but that he loves both me and my fiance very much and knows that we're meant to be together. He said that he wants to have a sit-down discussion with both of us to discuss marriage values. On Thursday, my mother spent the day texting me about how I'm a horrible child that will do anything to hurt her. She then started texting my mother-in-law about how none of her family will attend the wedding and that even so, my dad looks too sick. Ironic. My fiance and I had made the decision to go ahead with the wedding, and so on Friday, we went to my dad's to have the talk with him. He started off repeating everything that my mother has said, that this is a mockery of a real wedding, etc. He kept going on about Catholicism and began being very disrespectful to my fiance while he shouted at us. He said that we were being disrespectful to his dead parents. I tried to get him off of the topic of religion and make a final plea regarding my dad's condition and that he needs to see where we are coming from. We want to give him the opportunity to walk me down the aisle. This pissed him off even more, and he shouted, "Then watch me die," in our faces. At this point, we left and went to my sister's. She was heartbroken that my parents were acting this way. She had also spoken with her priest. She is quite religious as well. And he said that there is no reason for my parents to not support this decision, and that there is not enough time to go through the marriage prep for a church wedding that my dad could attend. She also said that for her wedding, she had constant issues with my mom, but it was spread out over the course of a year. And with my dad, he screamed at her the night before her wedding because of the video. On Saturday, my mom texted me in the morning that she hopes we will honor their values one day. That was all. Then, my fiancé became my husband. Lots of family, fiancé's side, and friends helped with everything throughout the day. My sister did so many incredible things, and I can never thank her enough. My brother ended up walking me down the aisle, and my dad's sister, who's leaving today, attended as well. My parents did not show up. The funny thing is, my auntie, my dad's sister, is Jehovah's Witness and was married by a JP. My dad's mother, who was very religious and who he had thrown in my face about disrespecting, attended and supported that wedding. We drove 2 provinces away, to help set up for the wedding. So anyways, my fiancé is now my husband. We really had a magical day surrounded by so much love and support. I guess I will never get the chance to have my dad walk me down the aisle and have my parents support our decision. Now, I have to evaluate whether or not I will still take compassionate care leave in February to help with my dad's care, as his health declines. I already had all the paperwork completed, and my boss is notified. I doubt he will want me to. My wife's father passed away when she was young, so it's been her and her mom for a long time. They're close. When we got married, my mother-in-law had a boyfriend she moved in with. About 2.5 years ago, they broke up, and since then, she's always around. I'd say she comes to my house for dinner or is over on weekends, on average 3 or 4 times a week, and my wife goes to her extended families for dinner on Sundays with the kids and her mother. My wife knows my frustration. My mother-in-law even knows, because in the past, my wife has sort of danced around it with her, and I think she got the message. She backs off for a week or so, and then it's back to the same. And now my mother-in-law just acts very awkward around me. My mother-in-law will get off work and call my wife and say something like, "Did you want me to come over tonight?" Or just ask what we're doing until my wife invites her. It's to the point any plans we have that aren't with someone else, it's just sort of understood my mother-in-law will be going with us. And my wife feels guilty if we just go out and do something on a Saturday without inviting her. We got in a big fight last night because we were going to go to dinner, and I was like, "Okay, let's go." And she said, "Well, my mom gets off at 6 o'clock, so we'll have to wait." I said something like, "Why do our plans always have to revolve around when your mom is available?" She blew up on me, telling me she doesn't get it, why it bothers me so much. She only comes over for dinner for a few hours. It's not like she's here all day. And eventually screamed at me, "She's all alone. She has to sit there in her house with nothing to do." My mother-in-law says she's done dating. She doesn't really have many friends and just doesn't make any attempt to have a social life. Her sister has invited her over for get-togethers with their friends, and she turned it down to come be at our house instead. I've told my wife I understand how she feels, but ultimately, her mom's happiness isn't her responsibility. It's really ruined my relationship with my mother-in-law. We used to get along well. Now, when she's at my house, even if it's been a while, it makes me kind of roll my eyes. I hate that I feel that way, but I can't help it. I feel like she knows she's intruding, but she does it anyway. When she broke up with her boyfriend, she needed somewhere to stay, and I basically told my wife, "Fine, but there needs to be an end date right off the bat, or she'll never leave." It caused a lot of problems, but she eventually said she wouldn't stay with us because she knew how I felt. In the past, my wife has seemed sympathetic to my frustration, and I hate putting her in the middle. But this time, she just blew up and basically told me she just doesn't understand why it's such a big deal. I told her when we got married, I never agreed to any of this. I get that they're close, but getting married is kind of a break from your parents, or supposed to be. Eventually, we calmed down, and my wife said she'd talk to her mom or go to her house instead sometimes. I think that's a reasonable way for us to meet in the middle, but her telling me she just doesn't get it really is still bothering me today. She was basically like, "I don't agree with you. I don't know what you want me to say." I guess I'm just worried that regardless of what she does to try and make it better, if she feels that way deep down, it's just going to cause resentment. In the end, I think I got what I wanted, but I don't feel any better. Edit. I don't know if it's relevant, but we have 2 kids, 5 and 2. So that's often her excuse to be around is to see them. Ask her flat out why her mother's feelings take priority over yours. It's a big deal because a third person is always being injected into your relationship. It's not that her being around is specifically a problem, but always being around is a problem. It means you don't get to do things as a couple. It means you don't get time to yourself. It means you always need to be considering someone else's schedule and feelings when making your own plans. Your wife feels guilty, that's understandable, but blowing up at you about it is not acceptable. It's easier for her to not understand your feelings than it is to acknowledge them as being valid and therefore have to take action. In short, it's easier to cater to her mother as the priority and expect you to just suck it up, because her mother will guilt trip her if she doesn't cater to her needs, whereas you just get resentful and annoyed. Like water torture, a single drip isn't a big deal. A few drips aren't a big deal. But a constant, unending string of drips that you know isn't stopping is very unpleasant. It's also a big deal because you're unhappy. She knows you're unhappy, but she's choosing to keep her mother happy at your expense, rather than stand up to her mother in any way. She's prioritizing her relationship with her mother over her relationship with you. And that's not a good way for a partner to behave. Does she even want her mother there all the time? Really, truly want? Or is it simply because she feels guilty? Background: my 20 female brother, 18 male, recently announced he and his girlfriend, 25 female, of 1.5 years, plan to get married. My brother and I have been very close our whole lives. We have 2 other siblings, a sister, 15 female, and a brother, 12 male. We all share the same mother and father, and they are celebrating their 25th wedding anniversary next weekend. For simplicity, we will call 18 male brother James, 25 female brother's girlfriend Julia, mom, dad. James met Julia when he was 17. They worked together at a resort, and she was his manager. They began dating about a month after meeting. Mom, Dad, and I all thought the age gap and the fact that she was his manager was a little concerning, but didn't think it would last long. James, being 17, really hadn't had a relationship that lasted longer than a week. James began sneaking out to spend the night with Julia. This was strictly against Mom and Dad's rules, missing work and school for her, and acting out in many other ways. This greatly upset our parents, and try as they did, he continued to act irresponsibly for her. He ended up missing so much school he nearly didn't graduate. He would spend all of his free time with her, and the rare times he was home, he had bruising on his arms that looked suspiciously like fingers. I, being a protective big sister, did not at all like this. I demanded to know what happened and why he suddenly always had bruises, but he brushed me off. He would frequently call me crying, saying he was miserable in his relationship and he felt stuck. I tried to convince him this was not healthy and he should break up with her, but he wouldn't hear it. This continued for several months. The day he graduated high school, which was in June of this year, he moved in with her. I thought this was a bad idea and expressed my concerns, but he wasn't hearing it. He visits us about once a week. Julia never comes with, but she has expressed she is not happy about this. She suspects that he is actually going out to cheat when he comes to visit us, even went as far as accusing him of being inappropriate with Mom, our sister, and I. Fast forward to his graduation party in July. Mom and Dad threw a huge graduation party for James and allowed him to invite all the friends he wanted. Again, Julia was not happy about this. She attempted to convince him to not go to his own graduation party. She screamed, cried, and begged him not to go. He ended up coming anyways and brought her along. This was the first time we all met her. She didn't say a word to any of us. She sat in the same spot with her arms crossed and pouting the entire time. After about 2 hours, she demanded they leave. James didn't want to leave, but she wouldn't let it go and forced him to come home with her, leaving all of his friends at our home. About a month afterwards, James called me crying again, asking if we could go for a drive and talk. Of course, I said yes and went to pick him up. We drove around for a few hours and he spent the entire time ranting about how stressed and upset he is in his relationship and that he wants to leave but doesn't know how. During our drive, we parked in a parking lot for a few minutes. She called him shrieking that he was cheating because he was sitting in a parking lot. After about 5 minutes, I had enough and grabbed the phone. I told her he was with me, his big sister, and she hung up. I asked how she knew we were in a parking lot, and he told me that she installed a GPS tracker on his phone that sends her live updates. We came up with a plan for him to leave, and he seemed relieved. I dropped him back off at his apartment and went home. Obviously, that never happened, and he chose to stay with her. He called Mom over the weekend to tell her they planned to marry, but Julia doesn't want us to come. Her reasoning is that she doesn't know us and doesn't want anyone she doesn't know at her wedding. The thing is, she has actively chosen not to know us. We have tried to invite her to multiple family events, but she refuses to come. I'm sorry this is all over the place. I'm just really heartbroken and angry over this. This is classic abusive behavior. She is isolating him from his support systems. It probably has nothing to do with future inheritance. Your parents aren't knocking on death's door, but just that she is an abusive person. You need to keep everything really open with him, not pressure him or try to convince him he's being abused, etc. You tell him you are there for him any day, any time, any place, and all he has to do is say the word and you will come running. You say this every time you end a conversation with him. I love you no matter what. I'm here for you, always. The next thing that he's going to start struggling with is the guilt of still being with her, going back to her, etc. That's why you keep that door open and non-judgmental. You can point out that this isn't just her wedding and that he has a right to have his family at his wedding. You can point out that he can back out of the wedding right up until the I do, and no one in your family will blink an eye. You don't tell him you would be thrilled if he did that. You tell him to take his time to start a family, not because she's an abuser, but until he can get established in a career, or that they should enjoy the first few years of their marriage, etc. I imagine her next trick is going to be that she miraculously gets pregnant, even though she's on birth control. Update. I convinced him to come on a drive with me, and we talked. I had him turn his phone off and let him know I would deal with Julia, and he has nothing to worry about. He admitted he thought an engagement would shut her up and get her off his back. I showed him this post and all the comments. He was angry that I posted this at first, but then when he realized everyone here was saying the same things I've been saying for months, he just went quiet. I waited for him to say something, anything, for what felt like forever. He finally said, "Can I please come home with you?" I said, "Of course." Luckily, Julia is at work, so we were able to swing by his apartment so he could get a bag together. He is currently in his old room getting settled for the night. I just hope he doesn't go back in the morning.